Today, I really wanted to share some ideas and inspiration on infusing creativity into your everyday life. Creating can be simple when we kind of let go of control and our own expectations and we create it as a practice and a habit. So I have a toddler, so this is all going to be about infusing your days with creativity with a toddler involved, and obviously this will apply to you if that is not the stage of life that you're in, but hopefully it will encourage you, especially if you are a mom or just looking for an outlet. I know in big transitions of life, it can be a little overwhelming, and having creative habit or a hobby or something to put your hand to, I feel it really changes things, and it did for me. So I would love to inspire you, encourage you in any way that I can in that direction, because I know the power of creativity. I know the power of slowing down, putting my mind to some good work in front of me, and finding a creative practice grounds you, that helps you center yourself and brings respite and clarity and perspective to your everyday life. So creating and making something is not always just sneaking away to your private little space and having this hours of uninterrupted time, which I love when that happens. I love when nap time comes around, because that's kind of my time to create, or after bed, whenever it is. I do love that unbothered kind of me time to create. But this is mainly about your day-to-day, everyday, kind of busy life, your rhythm at home, and how that can be filled with creativity, and how doing so can just make those moments so much more special, memorable, and really bring you back to what those moments are all about in the first place, through connection. Today, I just want to share 5 intentional ways to infuse creativity into your day. They're really simple, but hopefully they kickstart something within you and with your family, your own traditions and day-to-day life. But first, I would love to know what creative practice you love, what hobbies you're involved in, what you find centering and grounding, and how that brings perspective to your life. So I'd love to hear your perspective down below. You can leave a comment. So I would just love to connect with you about that. My first tip is to look at your days through a new lens. Remember that adding creativity to your day-to-day life isn't about creating this elaborate craft that is perfectly planned out, that is a beautiful end product, something that just takes hours to do. Don't overwhelm yourself with those types of crafts and think that that has to be what creativity looks like. I kind of feel like that can be a little overwhelming, and honestly, I think that will burn you out. And it can be really exciting in the beginning, especially around like holidays and stuff. I love doing those little things with my little girl and her friends, but at the end of the day, I don't have the energy or the time or even the resources to keep going and getting more and more things to create these kind of elaborate crafts. So looking at it through a new lens is saying, here's my day. What do I have? And how can I look at it in a way that is going to bring life and rejuvenate even the smallest moments of our day? So what I mean by that is taking a moment to walk outside and giving your daughter or son or yourself just the permission to go outside, to forage some leaves, flowers, or buy them at the grocery store and bring them out inside and just lay them all out in front of you. Give yourself permission to make a mess and create a little arrangement with it. That could take 15 minutes. It could take more or less, but think about what that does to the rest of your day. You get to see the floral arrangement every day as you walk past the dining table. There's so much more that is doing than just the simple finished arrangement. It's not only the process of finding the ingredients and materials, the putting it together, the problem solving, and it's that accomplishment as well that you feel every time you see that little arrangement. So that's what I mean by looking through a new lens. And I think a big part of this is the invitation that you extend to your child or to yourself to enter that creative process. And especially when you allow your child to enter into a creative moment with you, I feel, and I've seen for myself, that I get to see the day and through a new lens. And it really makes you slow down because they have a tendency to take the slower route, the messier route. Let's just say the route that you wouldn't take. They usually take the opposite route. But that teaches me so much in the moment. And through that, you both get to experience the effects of creativity. Personally, I think that cooking and baking is the perfect place to start with a child. You can start so young with a child in the kitchen. What I've seen in our own family is the skills like stirring and mixing and pouring and learning to be patient and learning not to touch the hot stove. All of these little tiny details, they actually spill into parts of creating, like painting or learning how to use a brush or hand sewing or pouring and playing with the dirt. It's just all mixed together. If you stop compartmentalizing, I can't say that word, your days, then creativity gets to flow throughout it. My second, just simple tip is to create a craft box. Make something that is accessible to you, and if it's more things that you don't want your child to get into, obviously keep it on the top shelf, and maybe keep 2 craft boxes, one that they're allowed to access that is less messy, like crayons and paper, and another box to keep the more paints and messy things like that. Whether it's that, like paints and little craft supplies like that, maybe it's just scrap fabric or glue, and they get to practice cutting out little shapes, or not really shapes, just cutting the fabric. And just having those things on hand, I feel, is an instant like attraction to a kid. And especially when you get to kind of notice what they're attracted to and take part in that with them, then that really is where that special spark of creativity comes from. In another vein, keeping your own craft supplies at hand, keeping a little table maybe in the corner or a closet where your sewing machine is set up and you're able to kind of reach for it or sew a new seam with a little downtime. Just keeping it in view will keep it top of mind. Personally, I've been knitting a vest for a long time. It's taken me forever. Just kidding. It's like 2 months. But it's taken a long time, but I keep it right beside my couch. And every time I go to sit on the couch, I'm like, oh, I could just knock out like a row right now. I don't have to sit down and devote like an hour to this. I can just pick it up and put it back down and take a note of where I left off. And man, I can't tell you what that does to just my spirit and my perspective when I take that time, because I noticed it was right there in front of me. So what can you keep out and keep in front of you to just spark those little moments of picking up creativity? So I would like to encourage you to redefine creativity. So I think I've just touched on this throughout the video already. I love the quote, "Boredom is where creativity begins." And I have found that true for me. I see it so obvious in my daughter. I think all the things that I see on the internet, and you're just like, where did they come up with this? And I believe it's because they reached this point of boredom where they weren't reaching for their phone, or they weren't reaching for work, or just having to check off something on their list. They pushed past that and got to the real part of creativity. So leaving space for this boredom, for that of the moment creativity, is so vital and such a special thing to experience. And you can't really experience unless you allow yourself to get to that point, because creativity is bringing things to life that weren't there before. It's problem solving, it's asking questions, and you can't do that when you're so preoccupied and even defined by a certain lens of creativity that you've maybe held in the past, if it has to look a certain way or it has to reach this level of excellency. I think it's just like, let's simplify all of these things, and I think that's where you find so much more joy in the process. And if I could also encourage you to not wait until you have the perfect tools, the perfect supplies, because even the lack of these tools and lack of supplies creates way for that problem solving, and even finding a way to do something maybe better than you thought if you had that perfect tool. I mean, I see this with my daughter all the time. I just see her using something that's obviously not a microphone for a microphone. And I think, oh, I should probably get her a real microphone so she knows what it is. But I feel like that's stifling what's already happening with her imagination and her creativity. So I'm learning so much through her, and just seeing that I can redefine what this is, and I don't have to stick with what I've imagined creativity having to be in the past. So number 4 is thinking of creativity as a whole process. I absolutely love the beginning planning stages of making something. I love finding inspiration, dreaming up what the end goal is going to be. I feel like that is kind of the magic of all of it. And I feel like even waiting it out and kind of still thinking through until it clicks before I start on a project, that is still creativity, and that is still part of the process. So if that's cutting things out of magazines, finding pins on Pinterest, doodling, whatever it is, like even the process of buying the supplies and the right materials, or going outside and finding things to make like a nature art with, that's part of the process, and that is part of the magic of creativity. So lastly, the common thread through all of this is to let go of control and those expectations that you've had on yourself, and remember that creativity is just taking things through a new lens, looking at how you can make a space more inviting before you sit down for a meal, or creativity is giving your child freedom to kind of explore an idea with making a mess, and even giving yourself that permission. I hope that through all of this, you feel a little bit lighter and more energized to make something and to find the gift of creativity in the process, and how healing it can be, how energizing and rejuvenating it can be. And just think, if you do that every day, if you kind of look at your days through a new lens of how can I add just a little bit more of my own spin and my own touch to today in the smallest moments, I really think you'll start to just see the day-to-day life in such a different way, where it is a gift to you and to your family and to those around you. So if you are interested in just seeing what you can learn about creating every day, then you can click this next video. Thank you for being here. I enjoy just connecting with you, and I'm glad that we have this space to be a little sewing club, be a little community, and learn from each other.